The combustion of fossil fuels is one of the primary sources and the major causes of the greenhouse gas emissions, and this is the primary cause for the climate change. And therefore, the main issue or the main focus of climate policy is to foster a transition from fossil-based energy production towards a renewable energy system. We have the resource efficiency policy on the other side. And this policy approach seeks to minimize the use of resources, of natural resources, by minimizing the general use, by increasing the efficiency, and by the substitutions. And what we can also see is that material use and energy use are inherently interconnected. For instance, the energy system heavily relies on raw materials like fossil fuels like lignite, coal, oil, and gas. And also the whole raw materials extraction, for instance, and the preparation and the transportation and the production, all this requires energy as well. Although it makes a huge difference if the material is burned like the coal, or if it's just chemically and physically altered, or let me transformed, for instance, like metals from ore towards pure metal. If you're interested in these mutual dependencies of these two systems, this could be done by causal chain analysis or system analysis, and you could do this like qualitative modeling. And this is an approach to understand the complex systems. And we've elaborated at CLD a causal loop diagram, and this consists already of 32 loops, where 15 loops are like balancing structures and 70 loops are reinforcing. These kind of loops are, let's say, a cause becomes the effect, and the effect becomes to a cause. And taking this into account, not one factor alone is responsible for the whole behavior of the whole system. You need to understand the loop interactions to understand the whole system. And then you can see different combinations of loops, like reinforcing combined with a balancing loop, and this creates sort of typical shape of reaction, like for instance, increase and a decrease afterwards, or some goal seeking. And you can find several of these loop combinations in the whole system that we addressed here. Around the anthropogenic stock of resources, the combination is centered around the nexus between greenhouse gas emissions and the use of raw materials. And another one is centered around the whole economic system of production and consumption, and what has this to do with the energy use and the use of raw materials. When you know these central feedback loops and these causal connections and this kind of nexus, then you come to, or at least you could come to, better policy approaches. I would call them systemic policy approaches. And currently we see that a very sectoral policy is likely to fail if it's just addressing one issue in the whole policy approach. That means, for instance, if you just look at resource efficiency increase, you might lose out of sight what do we do with the greenhouse gas emissions, and vice versa. So if you just focus on the greenhouse gas emissions, then you might lose out of sight the use of raw materials and resources. Another effect is that you're just shifting the burden. That means you're replacing one problem with another problem. And this is what you can see just by looking at the loop constructions. And so one of the main conclusions is that don't look at just one single sector, just look at this systemic view and just look into the combination of the different loops. And this means you have to pull and push, whatever you like more, simultaneously the different levers in the whole system. That means you have to parallel scaling up the recycling capacities, increase the energy and material efficiency in production, reducing the consumption levels, which is like reducing, reusing, repairing, recycling, and these kind of things that you already know. And of course, closing the secondary loop. That means closing and minimizing the material losses at all stages of the loop. And one thing is, you might know all these concepts. They already know, they are published and discussed in the public. But if you look very closely, not simultaneously. Different actors are promoting different approaches, and what we should do is focus and bring them together, understand the interplay, and then apply them simultaneously or in a, let's say, reasonable combination, way of combination.